Hey, what's up, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to the Pitlane Podcast, episode number 109 today, to discuss the Australian Grand Prix and some news pre-season. This is the final podcast before the season kicks off. Very exciting times. Back with you, who's your host? Myself, Aarav, Callum, and Tom. Guys, first and foremost, before we get into anything, it's now 1 week. It's, Sunday to Sunday, 1 week until the first race gets underway. Are we buzzing for it? We're getting excited for it.
Yes, we are. I think it's about time. I think everything else has been starting to kick off. Obviously, we've had the Formula E in the background. I think the MotoGP season's just about to start as well, or it has now started. So everything else is starting, but we're still waiting for that Formula One. But to be fair, I think everyone's starting to wake up, and my Twitter's suddenly gone from everything else like football and random memes to actual Formula One content now. So I know it's on the horizon, but it's time to set those alarms because we're going to be tired for the next weekend.
Oh yeah, love it.
Yep, we made it. It's going to be an early one next week, but we're on the road again, I guess.
Yeah, on the road again. Yeah, we're going to start the journey off again for another.
Like
9
Cal
months?
said. Yeah, pretty much until December this year.
Yeah, it is. This is the first season where it goes to December. Or is it like the first week of December? Isn't it? Just like right.
I think it's the first of December.
Like that,
It's literally first. Okay.
Yeah, I think it is.
So yeah, it really is a full 9 months then. But yeah, so we're going to kind of preview Australian Grand Prix. Got some few little tidbits of news ahead of Australia. And the first one being that it looks like F1 is set to award a bonus point to the driver who sets the fastest lap in the Grand Prix. And he has to be in the top 10, though. That's the other caveat. But we've not had this for many, 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 many years. Like, I think the last time it was 1959. So they had it for 9 years since F1 began in 1950. And then they stopped it, which is quite impressive, to be fair. Because if you think back then, they didn't have electronic timing. So how on earth they, were able to pick out who had the fastest lap with stopwatches is beyond me.
The amount of stopwatches that must have been like
just some guy. I imagine this guy who's got a table of literally 20 stopwatches, and he's just like clicking away. Like actually, back in the day, it was probably only like 12 people taking part. So like 12 stopwatches.
One per driver just with a stopwatch every time.
Yeah.
60 times every single lap. Just
crazy.
Click.
But about that in 2019, what do we make of that? Like initial reactions to just the sound of that rule and kind of.
I don't really see the point, literally.
Right.
I don't see the point in it just because even if you have how many races are this season? 21. I would say 2021.
21. Yeah.
It still doesn't add up to a full race victory. So
no,
it's got no real value there, and as a lot of the stats say from last season, most of the fastest laps are scored by the top 6, which are all separated by, sometimes more than a couple of points. It's really only valuable for the lower teams, but there's obviously then the caveat of they've got to finish in the top 10. So they've not only got to have fresh enough tyres to be able to score this fastest lap by the end of the Grand Prix for it to be worthwhile, but then they've got to somehow be in the top 10, which I'm not entirely sure how that. They've got to have some sort of masterstroke race strategy, or literally the half the field.
Or it's like one of those races where, it's strung out so much where there's a gap from like P9 to P10 that's mad, so you may as well sit in that fastest lap and get one more point on top of your 2 points for P9 maybe.
Because otherwise, if Mercedes, Ferrari, or normally it's a Red Bull, usually it was like a Daniel Ricciardo or a Verstappen who usually picked up the fastest lap. So, I don't know about Tom's view on it, but I just don't see I don't think it's really that necessary, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not really necessary. I think also it's a good way they've done it, so it cannot be abused. I think especially if Formula B are closer to Formula A, then there's less motivation to want to maybe lose a few places for the sake of a faster lap, because it makes no sense, because you want to score more points.
Yeah.
So I think it will work better if Formula B are closer to Formula A.
I was going to say, I think
Alpha in there, maybe Renault, like they're kind of Formula 1.5, that kind of thing, just in the middle, because that would make it more interesting, I think. But in principle,
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's like really close in terms of the points tallies and the standings, like Cal was saying, like, for the top guys, sometimes can be quite a large gap. I think in theory, the system maybe works better if in a magical world in a few years, F1's so much closer on the standings, then it might matter for the top teams as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've got a quote here from Martin Brundle that kind of maybe sums up what maybe the FI were thinking of. Like, Brundle said, I like the concept, especially if someone like Ricciardo or a Raikkonen, whoever can sneak in and steal an extra point off the front runners because they're watching each other too closely and pacing themselves. and he likes the idea of people pushing each other along that they can't coast too much. So literally, what both of you kind of echoed, like, you know, if there's a sneak-in surprise from a Raikkonen or Ricciardo in a Renault, and, you know, they can just push flat out, because sometimes we get that, because you have the guys at the top are fighting so much, and we see it on the F1 game as well. Tom, you and me will know, if people are going side by side so much, they lose time, and the other guys are pushing flat out. Maybe,
there's a few races last year where the Saubers, I remember Leclerc at Russia, he was
banging some good times.
Race, did a good race. Or you got those races where, for example, we know that Verstappen when he was coming through the field at Russia, so you can't really pit because Verstappen's kind of coming through the field, so you don't want to put yourself. You know, so it could work. I think mainly though you need the rest of the pack to be a little bit, a little bit closer.
Yeah, so it's an interesting rule. You know, obviously they're trying a few things to spice things up. They made sure that they were thinking actually early on they might do a pole position point, but they definitely moved away from that because they wanted to focus on having everything decided on the race day, which I like, because, you know, if there was 1 point in the championship in terms of deciding it, it would be absolutely horrendous if, you know, 1 point was awarded for pole and that was it. So I like the fact
especially because people set their cars up for the race.
Exactly, yeah. So they're thinking about the FIA and Liberty Media are thinking about it in like that. And I think they have good intentions with this rule, but ultimately, like Callum said, I think the exact sentence, you know, like you said, literally, I don't really see much point in it right now. But you never know. We've said that sometimes about other rules. We thought that about the 3 tyre compound rule. Remember when it came in?
Yeah.
The three of us were like, maybe it might work or not. And
a lot better than the double points rule, for example, because that was just almost like a gimmick. This one is a little bit more structured, at least, and it does. And I do, to be fair, out of all of it, yes, I do like the fact that it does promote drivers to just push, which, you know, sometimes we do sit back and go, oh, they actually push in, especially around, like, for example, the Monaco Grand Prix, where they're literally just cruising.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it does promote that, but until they either maybe put more points on it, then there isn't a huge amount of value.
Yeah,
I think to summarise in a sentence, for me personally, I don't really care about it too much, as long as it doesn't decide the championship by a point, and it's that fast as that, because that, for me, makes it extremely wet and moist.
Yeah, I mean, I highly doubt it. F1 in recent years has not gone down to a point. I think last time was 2012, so I don't think we'll have that issue even this year, no matter how close the field looks. It does look very close
especially with this point system, at least.
Well, yeah,
with 7 points separating first and second.
Exactly.
No, wait, is it 7 points?
Yeah,
7 points.
Like you said, the 21 points don't even add up to a race win. So, in the end, I think it's just an intriguing rule. Might come into play maybe once or twice in terms of this surprise man's got a point, but apart from that, yeah, it's just there. We'll see how we can judge it later on the season.
It falls into the category of things where Liberty have changed things for the sake of changing them, not because they needed to be changed.
I think that's a great sentence. Yeah. So yeah, let us know what you guys think in the comments below at the end of that conversation. Do you guys think it's going to do anything? Maybe not. Some of you guys against it. Some of you guys for it. Let us know in the comments below. We're going to move on to some quick talk about week 2 because Tom was not here, of course. We got Niren substituted in. By the way, you guys seem to really enjoy Niren on the podcast, so we'll try and get him in later on in the season for sure again. But Tom missed that conversation of week 2. Tom, did you have any kind of thoughts of week 2 for yourself? Just give yourself a little bit of platform for that.
Yeah, I think I was impressed. Generally speaking, reliability seemed a little bit worse than week 1.
Yeah, we talked about that. It was weird.
Little tidbits there. Maybe Ferrari could be a little bit more vulnerable than what we think. But generally speaking, I think you can see Ferrari do look the force to be reckoned with. I think everyone in the paddock kind of knows that. Mercedes, I don't think they're as bad as they make it sound. I don't think they're half a second off. I'd be very, very, very surprised if it's half a second. Similar to like when Hamilton put on pole at Australia last year. If that's a kind of gap, I'd be surprised. I really would be. With that being said, I think Red Bull, kind of a bit of an unknown. They seem very confident. Honda party mode, we yet to see that really, I think. So that could be an interesting one. And then in terms of the midfield battle, I think Alpha could be a lot close. I think they're going to be really close to the top 3 personally. I think they look favourites to me to really bridge that gap of Formula B and
We'll have to
Formula
see because week 2, that was one thing that we didn't actually mention in the podcast last week, is because it kind of went under the radar a little bit, and Alpha only kind of owned up to it after the testing was over. But they brought some package updates in week 2, and their car definitely on the long runs will look worse in week 2. and according to reports, they're going to take week one's package to Australia. So I think there's the little edge of, they're the team that are experimenting the most, I think, with these rules and regulations in terms of the front wing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think at the same time, it could, bite them back a little bit like that. So I'm a little bit cautious now, actually, going to Australia. I hope for their sake that the week one package works better, because week two definitely was a little bit of a step back and a bit of a bafflement for them.
My prediction for them is a bit of a Hassy kind of season where they bounce around a bit.
Yeah.
I think they could have their ones where it's a silver bullet, maybe sometimes, other ones where it's just an absolute dog.
It's interesting as well, because more than likely they're going to turn up to Australia with both packages to back it, because
probably, yeah.
they are probably in a bit of an unknown.
Specific.
But the problem is they turn up to Australia, the first race of the season, which is not a very representative track for the rest of the season.
It's a very unique track.
It's very, if anything, it's a very good way to start off the year, because we know the results in Australia probably won't be the same for the rest of the season, because it just never is. Like, how many times has Vettel won Australia? He won 2017, and he was pushing the Mercedes in 2016 as well, and 2018 as well. So they're all the teams are going to turn up to Australia and going to go, right, okay, yep, this works, and then they're going to go to the second race of the season and go, oh wait, no, it actually doesn't work. And then they're going to revert, and it does put the teams on a bit of a back foot. Obviously, they can simulate it, and they do know the characteristics of Australia and then the rest of the tracks on the calendar. But it does. I just like the fact that we go to a track where
it's a spanner in the works.
It is a big spanner in the works. It's just a street track. It's bumpy and it's unpredictable, and that's exactly what I want from this opening race of the season.
Yeah, of course.
I think I'll finish off by saying as well. It's an interesting one because there's a lot of rumours in the paddock, but I think my gut tells me Formula A will be Formula A. Then we'll have 1.5 with Alfa Romeo, Renault. And I like McLaren. I do like what I'm seeing. I just got a good feeling from them. I really do. And then Formula B will be Toro Rosso, Williams, Racing Point. I think Racing Point might struggle more than people think because it's basically that last year's car with 2019 adapted regs. Racing Point said all the money they spent at the winter has been on like investing in a better factory, kind of future-proofing. They're already working on next year's car. Like, this is going to be quite hard for them.
Tough.
Yeah, but at the same time,
so
because of that backing, they don't need to actually worry too much about it because the owners know it's a long-term project now.
But in terms of the pecking order, I'm saying for Melbourne,
right.
Dare I say, I think Williams could give Racing Point maybe a run for their money. I think Racing Point could be in trouble. I think during speaking, I think you got Racing Point, Williams at the end, McLaren, Renault, Alfa Romeo in the middle, and then I think the kind of question marks on Toro Rosso really, because the rumours are they could be really quick, or they just could be like last year. Because there's a rumour they've got, because they've got the Red Bull back like rear end of the car like from them, and like they've got the Honda, which is apparently better this year. It could be a silver bullet, but
I think it'll just be a classic Toro Rosso. They'll be good at the start, then
that's what I think.
Wean off at the end.
Toro Rosso is so demotivating for me. I can't get excited about Toro Rosso just because. Because of that sister team, and they're never going to beat Red Bull. I mean, I'd love to see. At the moment that Toro Rosso do start beating Red Bull,
that's why, like, back in there, I love that little storyline of like the uprising of the B team. Because imagine if Toro Rosso just started slapping Red Bull at some point, like, yeah, you know what, we're not going to follow your orders. We're just going to go on and plow on and beat you. Like, but it's just never going to happen.
It'd be really nice, but I don't know. They don't motivate me in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Alexander Albon. He seems like a really solid lad. But this year especially, I'm just like, with that driver lineup, it's just like, it really is just a kind of young driver program this year. In terms of like, and then even if they developed the car quite nicely through the season, I just don't know. I'm not as intrigued as I used to be about Toro Rosso this year, even though I do like Albon a lot. Just the fact that Kvyat's come back for like the 400th time now, it's just like, it's a little bit
back
like
again.
It's like
the thing is though as well
a midfield team.
With that team is like, compare where they are now,
to
where they were in 2011. They made no step forwards.
Yeah, they never do.
They haven't stepped on the podium.
Never do.
They haven't.
I mean, there is that.
You know what I mean?
Outside rumour that like Will Buxton said in Paddock Pass, there's a rumour going around they could even be faster than Red Bull. If Red Bull do have some genuine struggles, which is kind of like a background rumour.
I can't see that.
But yeah, I
see
think
that either.
Pretty much. I think we've all got kind of our opinions, but I just hope it's just a little bit closer together. That's all, really.
Yeah, well,
but
the analysts are saying the midfield should be
fierce.
within a few tenths. Like we're talking.
I think Haas as well.
Only
Didn't mention Haas. Haas are going to be towards the bottom. I'm not getting that It's not last year. Where I said in
either.
the last podcast. Last year, they knew Haas were best of the rest. There was that rumor in the paddock that they were fourth best. This year,
it's not happening. It's not happening.
It's because it looked like a 2017 Ferrari.
Well, yeah, that as well. And this year they had
them just
this year they had so many stoppages in week 2, so it's like, yeah,
true.
It's
Reliability.
it's gonna be weird to see how that shakes out. But so that was sort of week 2. A little bit talk. Obviously, we didn't have Tom's side of things, and now we'll go into kind of last little bits before Australia. And one of the things for Australia is a thing about Ferrari. Is Ferrari in trouble of some sort with their sponsorship of Mission Renault? So we've seen they had Mission. It came in Japanese Grand Prix, wasn't it, last year?
Yes.
Yep.
And McLaren this year announced sponsorship with British American Tobacco. That's it, and a new initiative of what's the line? Tomorrow is a better future or
For
something.
a better tomorrow.
Yeah, for a better tomorrow. That's their tagline. A very cheesy tagline, yeah. And that's their sponsorship on the car. And it's that trend of like tobacco companies coming back in, but with other sponsorship initiatives, of like, we're not related to the tobacco we do. This is a completely new initiative we're looking at. And definitely with Mission Renault, that's been their thing since Japan. But Australia, as Australia is, because we know Australians are very strict with their, advertising and board control and whatnot. You see like all those board control shows about Australia and stuff like that. So I'm not surprised it's coming out of Australia that's the real sticking point. So they're like, I guess watchdog in a way kind of people have been looking into Mission Renault and saying, now this is a bit fishy here. This is so closely linked to Philip Morris and their tobacco branding, especially last year with the whole white on red. Which very much...
Yeah. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
that's the main
I think Tom can explain it. If you turn the symbol up the other way and look at it closely, that chevron is very much like the Marlboro chevron logo, basically. And that's the thing they're getting at a little bit. And just because of the pure fact that it's owned by Philip Morris. So in Australia, they're not going to have it. It's just
sounds a bit arsey to me still. I mean, considering they allowed McLaren to run.
I think it's because McLaren's won. I don't think it's really... I think
it's still branded, though. It's the same, because I think it's still got BAT, which is British American Tobacco.
No, there's no BAT, though. There's no BAT, though.
Isn't there?
Any sponsorship from McLaren's BAT sponsorship, it's all like that slogan. There's no mention of BAT. Whereas Ferrari's thing is like, it's a company called Mission Renault, and that's the name on the car as well.
Still.
It's only temporary,
The interesting thing, it's not going to be like last year's car where it's just blank. There's going to be something there in Australia. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, they said something special for the fans.
So that'd be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But
well, sometimes with Ferrari they either really excite you or they just fall flat on their face. And let's hope that they do go down the route of something like quite exciting.
Yeah, like a nice black horse. Like I would, Toro Rosso used to have their bull painted like very artsy like.
Yeah,
with like a very, long brush strokes, very kind of broken down, jagged kind of paintwork. I would love if they did a prancing horse in that kind of similar fashion, a very artsy prancing horse on the back.
It's funny you mentioned that, to be fair, because the moment you said slap the horse in it, I was like, what Red Bull do with their bull, for example.
Yeah.
But it pretty much could be that.
I would love that. I think it would look sick. I think
to be fair, I think now that my feeling is now that Australia have kind of banned Mission Renault, it might happen at more races because
maybe we know it's going to come back for Bahrain because they've already kind of confirmed that, but they've had to remove it from all team wear. The car, even their official entry name, is no longer Scuderia Ferrari Mission Renault. We know that will come back though for Bahrain. We've been told that their entry name will once again have Mission Renault in the title. Everything will be back for Bahrain. So
I've read because it's such a short, like it got decided so shortly before the race. They've actually had to dust off the old pit crew gear from last year, pre-Mission Renault sponsoring, like from Monza or something. All the team gear and team kit, and they're bringing all of that out. So you're going to have that asymmetric Ferrari badge, which is higher up on like one side of the race suit, all that back for this year. So
only the eagle-eyed will notice that. Everyone else will just be like, "Oh, it's it'll be fine." No, it's very F1 like this sort of thing. It's very picky and finicky
money.
And all about the money, but
it's like when they
at
had
least
the
it's
barcode
happened to like
thing.
Ferrari, for example, rather than a lower down team because it would have cost them a bit more money.
Probably, like ordering new team
afford.
kit probably wouldn't be too much of a drop in the water for Ferrari, but still.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the kind of big, maybe only issue Ferrari might face at Australia is their advertising issues, perhaps, and hopefully it will be a good old battle for them at Melbourne. But so we mentioned the Netflix show last episode, and it hadn't come out yet, and so me, Cal, and Niran were both all saying that looking forward to it. Could be interesting. Since then, Callum, how many? You've watched quite a few episodes, right?
I've watched 6 episodes.
6. I've watched, I think, 4. I watched the first 2, and then I was told that there was a really good episode with Horner and Abatal for episode number 4. So I skipped ahead and watched that one. And then also I got told the one with Gas and Leclerc was really good in terms of looking at their friendship.
That's my next one. I think that's the 7th one. I want to say.
So I skipped ahead and watched that one. I basically watched the ones that people were really enjoying. I'll start with you, Callum, because you first told me about your impressions.
I saw Arav just this weekend, just gone, and I only watched the first episode on the train. I think maybe that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't like it as much, because it just because I was just maybe in the wrong environment and watched it on my phone. And I just thought the first episode was a bit cheesy, and we did mention that the marketing of it is a bit cheesy, like Drive to Survive. We know it's one of the safest sports going, and they were pushing like, oh, we're gonna die at the moment every single time they step in the car and all that sort of stuff. But when it started to get into the juicy bits behind the scenes of the drivers, especially the focus a lot on Daniel Ricciardo. I don't know whether, Arav, you watched the episode of Ricciardo winning the Monaco Grand Prix and contrasting that with Verstappen and how bad he felt, but he had to put on a brave face because the whole of the media and the whole of the team were celebrating that amazing victory for Ricciardo. And like what Arav said, the Horner versus Cyril Abiteboul feud, which I didn't realise that the media said it was frosty, but we didn't realise it was that frosty. Like,
I loved it.
When Horner realised he was in the press conference with Cyril, he was like, "Oh boy, this is going to be interesting."
Like big elbows out, like, hey, here we go.
And then obviously when Ricciardo, I think it was like an episode or 2 later, when Ricciardo announced that he was leaving Red Bull to go to Renault, it was like, oh, and then Cyril came back and said that he'll be needing a driver and an engine for next season.
Yeah,
like proper.
And then Horner came back like, oh,
jabs.
have you got enough money to spend your engine now that you spend it all on your driver?
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah. It was the human side of F1 that you don't really see sometimes.
You never see. And to be fair, I love the fact that they haven't censored it. Because it's just pure and raw.
Yeah, all swear words about. It was great. Like, to see also the fact that these big guys, you know, they're in charge of the entire team, essentially. They're in the public eye. And it's great to see that in the end of it, they're just like any one of us. They're petty. They act like children a little bit sometimes with each other. They poke fun at each other, you know, have behind the back comments. It's great. It was great to see. It was really enjoyable.
Even when it delved into the Haas disaster at Australia, which obviously to be fair, when something bad like that happens, usually they're like, turn off the cameras. But the fact that they kept them on just to listen to what Gunter Steiner was saying on the phone to Gene Haas, like how they'd royally fucked it up and we looked like absolute idiots, and then the way and how he was speaking to one of the new mechanics. I didn't even know there were new mechanics for Australia, those 2 mechanics were the ones that messed up. And obviously he was giving excuses like, I was tired and this, that and the other. But I just thought it was such a brilliant insight into... As much as you've got to kind of ignore the cheese, because especially me as a filmmaker, there's a lot of cheese behind it. There's a lot of like, sound effects and
and stuff.
Like when the 2 wheels touch, they've got like a huge banging noise, which when in reality, all the F1 fans don't know that, but... It's a brilliant way for a new fan, and this is what we discussed last week. It was a brilliant way for a new fan to get into it, and
on that note,
got to say they nailed it.
It's been great because I've had on my Facebook, I've had cousins of mine who are like American who've like asked me what's my opinion on the documentary because they watched it, and he never talks about F1, and he messaged me about it. I've seen on Twitter, I've seen what was it? If you know COD, I've seen Optic Crim6 and other like streamers talking about that documentary, saying I've never watched F1, but I watched that documentary. I'm fully hooked. I'm gonna watch this season. It is so good to see that because that is exactly what we need, and the fact it's on Netflix, it's global. That's what you're going to get. And it's going to be... Man is international now. It's going to be... I mean, we're already international with F1, but more international, more well-known with maybe Americans, because obviously still for Americans, F1's not their biggest motorsport. It's still something like NASCAR, IndyCar. So to get F1 more out there for Americans and to see them literally in front of your eyes on Twitter get hooked on it was really great to see.
It's just nice to... To be fair, I think maybe, I don't know, it might give a false impression that you might see a lot of behind the scenes when you actually watch the sport when it comes to the drivers, because obviously we don't even see this. Never mind.
Exactly.
But I think it's a good idea because obviously I think it gives it almost like an extra dimension to the sport, which obviously people kind of look at it very 2D like and be like, right, it's just people driving around in circles. Your average game of just, you can just play that on the PS4. Why do you need to watch people in real life do it? But then when you've got that third dimension of the politics, the drama, the tension, that's why we watch it. But it's so hard to get that across because obviously we only ever speak about the racing, but there's that extra dimension on top of it, which I think we all realise it, and as an F1 fan we know it, but it's just so hard to explain it because it's so developed. Like in the series, obviously, for example, the Ricciardo storyline, they had to give context what happened in 2016 and the current issues he's currently got in Red Bull with Verstappen, with the team, with the fact that he might have to leave, he's getting older, he wants to win a world championship. You have to give all that context, which is why it is so long. And it is, I think it's eight episodes into it in the series, I want to say.
In total, I think so.
And I think that is a suitable amount to give enough context for then someone to really understand the storyline. But I've got to give it a solid 9 out of 10. Like, if it was just a little bit less cheesy, a little bit more...
Yeah.
Like, I mean, as well as an F1 fan, I think if anyone does watch it, they'll notice that they kind of hybrid, that's a word, the hybrid Spa and Hungary, pretty much. Like there was shots of Hungary, and then there was like on-track shots of Spa, and it was like obviously a casual viewer would be completely blind to that. But as people who went to Spa, we can notice a curb and notice the colour of the tyre barrier and go, "That's not Hungary," to say the least. But I can't wait to watch the final two episodes.
Enjoyable, very enjoyable.
So basically, Tom, you need to get onto it.
Yeah, if you have Netflix, definitely.
I'll get into it. I don't have Netflix, but I'll just stream it.
Definitely. You didn't hear that. We didn't say that on this podcast.
I mean, no, yeah.
You can watch it completely legally.
You can get a free trial. I think everyone can get a free trial for Netflix. You can get a month free. So
definitely
I do encourage you to go watch it.
Definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. So on that note, then I guess we'll start talking about the season upon us, because they're going to be doing a second documentary about this season as well. So guys, we're getting through to the last portion of predictions for the season, and then also the Australian Grand Prix. For the Grand Prix, it's that usual thing that we've done now for the last year, which I feel like is good format, the pole position, the top 5, then in the race. But let's start off with the season predictions.
This is the hardest one.
Yeah,
because we don't have any yardstick whatsoever.
Yeah,
we'll go world champion and constructors.
Yeah, we'll go with world champion and then just the constructors championship basically, and we'll see how it goes. So, do either one of you two want to? I'm probably not going to be Cal by the sound of it. Do you want to go, Tom?
I'll go. I'll go.
Yeah, go on, Tom.
I think it's time. Not being biased, I just feel like it's time.
It's time.
Car number 5 to win number 5, along with the rest cars winning. The first Constructors' Championship is 2007-8. Not sure which year it was, but
2008. Yeah, I'll have to agree. I think it's Vettel's year. Don't know. There's just something. I watched the onboard. Don't know if anyone hasn't watched the onboard of Vettel versus Hamilton. As much as Hamilton was only 0.003 behind, that Ferrari looked hooked up. It looked like it was just.
He wasn't even moving the wheel that much.
And with something I literally read this morning, apparently Ferrari have made that Ferrari like what Vettel's car was like back in his championship winning years, where he could get all of his braking done before the corner and just lob the car in. And that's exactly what he could do on that hot lap in Spain, and that's exactly what he could do in his Red Bull through 2008 all the way to 2013. So I'm going to have to say
Vettel has a car where he feels now it's the one.
It's a Vettel car. It's one he can play around with, one he can really lean into and get stuck in, you know. We've seen before in the past drivers, mainly the driver I liked, really needed to have the car in the fine region of where they liked it. And I think Vettel's never been a stickler for that, like being like perfect, but he's needed that zone of like, you know, he needs to be able to chuck it around, and definitely it felt like that way on that lap.
It's not unlike certain drivers like maybe Hamilton who can, or Alonso who can
Hamilton and
wrestle
Alonso can
shit
definitely
car.
work with a bucking Bronco and get the time out of it. Yeah. Tom,
and Ferrari for the constructors as well.
Yeah,
got to say.
I said this in my one-off prediction video, so I've got to kind of go with the same one. Really, I can't really go with anything different. I said I think it's time finally. You know, third time lucky for Vettel. I think it's finally. You know, he's had the mental battle with Hamilton for those 2 years. And I think now he's resetting away. You know, got the good vibe with Binotto as well. Leclerc maybe pushing him that extra mile. I think it's finally time that he's going to get it done, get the job done with Ferrari. And I think, Ferrari, I think they've learned, hopefully, over the last 2 years a lot. And I think this time they'll make sure those mistakes... Well, I think there'll still be some Ferrari mistakes because it's Ferrari. I'm sorry, Ferrari fans. But
at some point, that driver clash or something like... The fact they've got those two drivers...
Something will occur, but I think this year they'll be able to mitigate it as much as possible, and then they'll be able to get the job done. And also Leclerc scoring probably, I think, more points than maybe some people are writing him off for. I think will be a combination of that Ferrari as a team will do well in the standings. So, yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. So it's a clean sweep, really, which means it's not going to happen, obviously, this season.
Likely, yeah.
Sorry, lads, we've all just jinxed it for you Ferrari fans.
Jinxed the whole season.
Yeah.
Sorry. But then looking at Australia...
Okay, yeah. The first Grand Prix, pole position... Top 5. We've already just said it's a spanner in the works kind of race. You just never know, really.
So really, we should, if Hamilton's never won the opening race of the season.
Pole position. Let's go. You two.
I'm going to go with Vettel. I think Ferrari they're strong at Australia. Sure, they've had a bit of luck, you could say, strategy-wise, but they just seem to get it right at Australia. So I'm going to say Vettel gets pole.
Okay.
I'm going to say... Sorry, go on. Yeah, you may as well finish off the rest. Yeah,
I'll say he converts a pole into a W.
Right.
I think Leclerc's going to get second. I think it's a 1-2 off the bat.
Ooh.
And then Lewis gets third. Bottas fourth. Bottas again seems a bit more like he's do or die this year, maybe.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. And then I'm going to say Verstappen fifth. Pretty straightforward. I was going to say Gasly, but I think, I'm going to just play it pretty straightforward.
That's a very safe set of predictions, which aren't going to be that far away from mine.
Well, I mean, if Ferrari 1-2 ain't that safe, I think that's pretty...
I'm going to put... Let's throw a spanner and say, there's a wet qualifying, and then we'll have a Hamilton on pole. Because if you put anyone's money... If you put your money on someone to get pole in the wet,
probably give you a follow that actually happens,
Hamilton. But then Vettel will take the race victory with Hamilton second, Leclerc third. I'd like to see Leclerc on the podium in his first race with Ferrari. And Bottas fourth with the Verstappen fifth. I don't think Red Bull have got the pace, if I'm quite honest.
I'm going to say Hamilton pole position. I think because it's Melbourne, like we said, it's a very different circuit. I think Hamilton could dance that car around and get pole, even if it's not raining, I think. But in the race, I think the race pace of Ferrari, I think they look so comfortable. Like that car seems so easy to drive for Vettel and Leclerc that I think Vettel will then eventually get the win. Hamilton comes second. I'm going to basically mirror a cow here of Leclerc third. I want him to see on the podium. Fourth place, though, I'm going to say Verstappen gets that. And Bottas comes in fifth instead. I think Verstappen, I don't know. I'm ready now to see Verstappen fired up from the get-go, and I say pounces on Bottas early and gets him and can defend for his life for that P4, and Bottas comes home in fifth.
I'd give Red Bull more credit. I think I'm still not 100% convinced.
No, I'm not convinced
because
I mentioned this in the video I did yesterday about, I think it was Horner or Helmut Marko said they're going to win 7 races, which is pretty much the same as last year, like in terms of their targets. So it's like, I would like Red Bull to be more confident in themselves, but I think they know themselves. They haven't bridged that gap fully.
It's been very much rinse and repeat the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, but I would like to think Verstappen this time has learned from previous seasons. He's going to be fired up from the get-go to jump on a Bottas mistake or something like that and get him. But those are our predictions, so I can't wait for all of us to be wrong and for Gasly to win the Grand Prix in Australia.
Can you imagine?
Alfa Romeo wins it.
You've never seen it. Giovinazzi crosses the line for P1.
To be fair, the official F1 channel released a video of top 10 debut wins.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe that was hinting that they're hoping for either a Leclerc or a Gasly to take a victory.
Yeah.
We're always talking about Daniel Ricciardo.
Oh, yeah, no.
Well,
what are you on about, mate? George Russell, Williams, rocks up. It's going to be Brawn GP all over again. It's all over for you out here in this town.
See, Brawn GP were good in testing as well. That's the thing.
We don't talk about. Okay, let's go back on that.
On a level, who takes the wooden spoon?
It's Williams.
Williams
are so far off the pace.
To be fair, this can link very nicely to a question. I've just literally noticed.
I don't agree with that. Racing Point I think Racing Point will not be as good as last year, but I don't think they're that bad. You can't be as bad as Williams.
If the midfield is as good as people say it is this year, I think it could happen.
No,
maybe.
Because even if they're worse than the midfield, I think Williams are that far back that Racing Point will just be in no man's land.
Maybe. I don't know. I like to think sometimes they could be a bit of a surprise.
Well, if we throw in just one question before we wrap this up, because I've just noticed a question in our Patreon, and they did say it might be an obvious answer. This is Lewis saying, which F2 rookie do you think will score the most points during the season? Is it going to be Norris or Russell? And I think it pretty much is a slam dunk
Norris. I think we can rephrase
Norris.
the question to say who will have maybe the better debut year, maybe, we could say. Who would have the better...
I'd still say
who do we
Norris,
think?
I think.
Yeah, I would say Norris.
I don't know. There's just something. I think Norris has just got a much better platform to show himself off this year.
I disagree. I think Norris will probably do better, but I think Russell could really show himself as a team leader or really show a lot of maturity this season if he does it well. Kind of a la Sirotkin.
He can show a lot of character, I think.
But yeah.
Who are you, Brendan Rodgers?
Yeah, no, that's what I literally thought of that as I said the words. I think that going off of that, actually playing off the question from Lewis, I think another question could be who's going to be the best of the new generation, the new blood? Who's going to have the best, not points wise, just the good feel best season of the new generation of drivers coming through in the top teams now? Leclerc, I'm talking like Leclerc, Gasly, even Norris and Russell. You know, who's going to have that best kind of, shining year?
Does Carlos Sainz count?
I think Sainz also counts, yes. Yes, I think so as well.
I'm going to Sainz. I think this could be a good year for him. I think team leader at 24, McLaren, I'm going to go Sainz. I think it could be a standout year for him.
That's a difficult one. I think I've still have to put my money on Leclerc.
He will
win a race this season.
My head goes straight to Leclerc, but at the same time, I've very much gone against the grain of a lot of the majority of people on Twitter saying that Verstappen's going to slam dunk, just push Gasly around.
Yeah, you're Mr. Gasly fan.
I think Gasly will have a much better season than people think, and I think that Honda relationship will shine through quite a lot long term. So I'm going to go with him. But Leclerc is really if I think by the head, logically, I think Leclerc.
I'd like Gasly to rock the boat of Verstappen because I think Verstappen's had it a bit too easy, and obviously Horner said in this Netflix series, it's like we're plugging this Netflix series a bit too much. But like Horner said, it was like.
Ricardo's running away
from a battle, running away from the fight, and he's kind of been elbowed out the team. So he's elbowed one driver out the team, and I'd like to see Gasly just rock his boat a little bit. I think he needs a bit of a push for Verstappen this season because he's got it a bit too easy. Yeah. And as much as he's performing well and he's won races, I think he just needs that extra bit of a push.
Yeah.
To get on with it.
At the same time, I'm very much with Tom as well. I think I really think this can be a great year for Sainz. He seems so much happier knowing that he's got a 2-year deal. He's his own, but he is a team leader now of McLaren
moved
essentially.
To England as well. He's the thing is, here's my point. It's very easy to say Leclerc, but technically speaking, if we're going for Vettel to clean sweep it, he can't have the best season out of the young blood because he hasn't.
Yeah, in terms of a shining moment, yeah.
In terms of
but there's
Norris
a difference between
Sainz is going up against Norris. Like there's
no, but yeah, but there's the thing there. That a shining season doesn't have to be. I think you can still be beaten by a teammate and have a shining season.
Of course.
Leclerc having a good season would be him pushing Vettel, not necessarily beating him, because I think compared to all the other young blood, apart from maybe a Verstappen, Leclerc's got the hardest job in his hands. He's in the top team.
And in
he's
a way,
the biggest media. He's under so much scrutiny from the media, and he's got a 4-time world champion.
And in a way,
next to him.
That is kind of part of the reason maybe why Ferrari, or even Bene rather, last year maybe wanted to bring him in to push Vettel, get that extra mile out of the German. So, yeah, it's. I mean, there's so many options we talked about, and this is why I think I'm genuinely so excited for this season. Less so about the cars, but just all these different drivers in different teams now.
Alex Albon could be a silver bullet as well, I think.
I feel like it's going to take him a while to get going, if I'm very honest.
He could be a bit of a silver bullet, I think.
Just because
he
hadn't turned that many laps in a Formula 1 car anyway, versus, for example, of Russell, who literally drove the Mercedes. I think he drove the Mercedes, the Force India, and the Williams from last season.
He's got
a lot of experience when it comes to a rookie driver.
He's also got a good yardstick of how horrendous the car he's driving right now is.
Exactly, yeah. Well, that's the funny thing. Obviously, he spent all last year driving that Mercedes in tyre tests and stuff, and then he's been put in a Williams, the poor fellow.
It's like he was literally driving a Mercedes AMG last year, and he's now been putting in a shopping trolley. He's asked to get the lap time out of that.
Sad times, but he's got to prove himself in the lower car to be in the top, as they say.
Yep,
they never say
that.
But
show any signs as well of the former self. That's going to be a big question going into Melbourne as well.
Yeah, there's a
Will he
lot.
get
There's a lot of really good, exciting things driver-wise to look forward to, which hasn't been the case for a long while in terms of this many driver things to look forward to. So it's going to be good. I think that's a natural end, though. That's why we're just going to keep on plowing on about how much we're going to enjoy this year.
Yep.
So we're going to call that an end, guys. Next week, the Australian Grand Prix. Can't wait to do that. Remember, we've got a new structure. We're going to do an instant race reaction after the race, and that'll come to you on Sunday, hopefully before midday, especially. Then we'll do a deep dive on the Tuesday after that. Really get into, with the news and the pundits saying what they want to say about Australia. So looking forward to that. If you have enjoyed this one, though, be sure to hit that like button. Let us know what you thought about anything we talked about in the comments below. If you do want to support us, you like what we're doing around here, and you're looking forward to the season of podcast, you can catch us on all audio platforms pretty much now. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, all links in the description. And if you really like what we're doing around here, like Callum just did, he took a question from our Patreon Discord, which is Lewis. You can get access to that Discord if you really support us on Patreon. So obviously, you don't have to, but if you do have that extra spare change lying about and you do like what we're doing around here, you can do. Or if you want a desk share or something like that, you can go to GT Mega and check out the code and use the code PitlaneF1 and get yourself a nice desk share, and that will directly support us as well. But guys, we're only 1 week away. So excited for this year of podcast. I think it's going to be a good year of podcast, let alone racing as well. I think we've really enjoyed the conversation so far, guys, this year so far. So looking forward to it. But till next time, guys, for that race reaction, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.